Chapter 1. A Kingdom's Weight. Princess Solara pressed her forehead against the cool glass of her chamber window, her breath leaving faint patches of fog on its surface. Beyond the pane, the sprawling palace of R'hllora gleamed under midday's soft sunlight, its many-domed roofs flashing hues of gold and azure. Servants hurried along marble corridors below, carrying fine silk robes, trays of shimmering jewelry, and fragrant flowers. The palace was abuzz with unusual fervor. This was the day her father, King Velryn, had warned her about. The day a human would arrive, a man named Captain Eric, known across distant star systems. He was to be her husband. The mere thought sent tremors of fear through her heart. Solara had grown up amidst comforts and music, floating dancers and kind tutors. She was raised to be a symbol of grace and diplomacy, yet now, she felt powerless. Just yesterday, her father had entered her chambers with a grave expression. "Solara," he said, his voice thick with duty and regret, "the Council of Worlds expects us to unite with humanity. This marriage will secure peace and prosperity for R'hllora. Captain Eric is chosen to seal that bond." She had cried out, "But father, I've heard tales. Humans are harsh, ruthless warriors who know no mercy." Velryn's weary eyes revealed no comfort. "I know what you've heard," he said. "But we need this. The humans hold great influence. Without their alliance, our enemies might circle like wolves. This marriage will protect us." Solara's protests had been gentle but persistent. Still, her father's decision was final. Duty, it always came back to duty. Now, the palace's every corridor thrummed with anxious preparation. She could feel the tension in the air as she tried to swallow her dread. She had never even met a human. Rumors painted them as taller and fiercer than any known species, with cold eyes and hearts forged in cruelty. Especially this Captain Eric. They called him the ruthless human. Warriors spoke of him in hushed tones, telling of his battlefield prowess and unyielding stare. Her heart clenched. Was she to be a pawn, wed to a cruel warlord who would neither respect nor understand her? She pressed her hand to her chest, as if to steady the erratic drumbeat within. No matter her fear, she understood what was at stake. R'hlora's peace hinged on this union. With trembling fingers, she adjusted the pale silver band in her hair, ensuring she looked every bit the princess expected. The world was watching. Her people needed her courage. Chapter 2. The Unseen Guest. Hours later, Solara stood behind a column near the main courtyard, hidden in the palace's shadows. The day's stillness broke with a distant hum of engines. She peered carefully from her hiding place. The human ship was descending, a sleek silver craft, unlike the ornate vessels of R'hllora. Soldiers and officials hurried into positions, lining up with rigid formality. Her father stood at the courtyard's center, posture regal, face stern. Her heart fluttered in panic. She wanted to see this Captain Eric before he saw her. If she must face him soon, better she knew what kind of man approached. So she watched, breath shallow, as the spaceship's doors hissed open. A figure stepped out. Solara blinked, startled. Where was the monstrous visage she had imagined? The man before them, tall, yes, but not looming like a giant, wore simple, functional attire. No heavy armor or cruel blades. His face was composed, handsome in an understated way, and his eyes scanned the surroundings with keen awareness, but no obvious malice. This couldn't be the ruthless human. Had the stories lied? She leaned forward, curiosity prickling at her fear. He moved with a soldier's grace, calm and contained. As King Velryn welcomed him, Solara noted how Eric nodded respectfully, answering with a quiet voice. No sneer, no barked orders, no threat. Servants glanced at him warily, but as he passed by, he offered a polite half-smile. They seemed taken aback, expecting perhaps a roar or an arrogant dismissal. Instead, he looked ordinary, almost kind. Solara slipped away, heart pounding. She needed more. Could a man with a kind eye truly be ruthless, or were they all mistaken? Chapter 3. Truth in Shadows. Determined, Solara spent the following days quietly observing Captain Eric. She stole along hidden passages, peered through curtains and from balconies. It was unseemly for a princess, but necessity outweighed propriety. She needed to know the truth. She watched him at the training grounds. Expecting brute force, she found something else. Eric sparred with palace guards, not thrashing them but guiding them. He corrected stances, encouraged improvements, even laughed lightly when a guard managed a good strike. After drills, instead of berating, he praised progress. A ruthless human? He seemed more like a patient teacher. Surprised, Solara's fear loosened slightly. Later, in the gardens, she witnessed him quietly admiring the floral blooms. A small bird fluttered down, and Eric stood still, letting the creature chirp at him curiously. No sudden move to scare it away. He simply observed with gentle awe. Solara's heart softened further. A man who enjoyed simple beauty couldn't be all cruel. In the dining hall, she expected him to reject or mock their alien cuisine. Instead, he sampled new dishes thoughtfully, complimenting flavors, discussing spices with cooks. Her people's food was strange to him, yet he respected it. This trait resonated deeply with Solara. Respect for another's culture is not the hallmark of a merciless conqueror. She even saw him handle a servant's mishap, a spilled tray of fruits, with calm kindness. No fury, no threat. He merely helped clean up and reassured the trembling servant. Each observation contradicted the dark tale she clung to. It unnerved and intrigued her. He wasn't just not terrifying, he was good? Yet a small voice warned her. He is a soldier, famed for triumphs in war. The stories couldn't be baseless. Perhaps he hid a steely cruelty beneath kindness. Still, each new glimpse of him made that voice harder to heed. Chapter 4. The Unexpected Meeting. The day came when her father announced that Solara and Captain Eric must meet properly. Panic and curiosity wrestled inside her. She had spied and learned much, but never spoken to him. How would he greet her? Would he despise this arrangement or share her hope? The meeting took place in a grand hall draped in silks of blue and silver. Musicians lingered discreetly at the edges, their instruments silent. King Velrin stood watchfully, and a handful of advisors hovered nearby, ensuring decorum. Solara entered, breath held, and saw Eric waiting at the hall's center. He stood tall, posture respectful. When their gazes met, he offered a polite bow. No leer, no challenge, just respect. She approached, steps cautious. At a proper distance, she inclined her head, voice trembling slightly. "Captain Eric, I am honored to meet you." The words felt heavy with uncertainty. He smiled gently. "Princess Solara, the honor is mine." His voice was calm, reassuring. "I know this situation is unusual. I appreciate the courage it must take for you to stand here." His acknowledgement of her feelings was unexpected, almost comforting. Solara swallowed, searching for words. "I admit I feared you," she said quietly, cheeks burning. "I heard stories of your ruthlessness." Eric nodded thoughtfully, not offended. "I know the reputation," he said softly. "Humans are often misunderstood, and my past battles earned me a fearful title. But I assure you, Princess, I am not here to bring harm. I'm here for peace, just as you are." His sincerity was palpable. Solara felt relief wash over her. She dared smile a little. "I've observed you," she confessed, blushing. "You do not seem ruthless at all." A flicker of humor lit his eyes. "You've been observing me?" he asked, Not angry, just amused. She nodded, stammering. I needed to know what kind of man you are. He didn't press her for details. Instead, he said, I understand your need. If I were you, I might have done the same. He paused, looking genuine. And do you feel reassured by what you've seen? Solara found herself smiling, heart lighter than it had been since the marriage was decreed. I do, she admitted. You are kinder than I imagined. In that moment, a subtle bond formed between them. They were no longer strangers trapped by duty. They were two individuals bridging a gap between worlds. The advisors, sensing the gentle warmth, relaxed. Even King Velryn's tight posture eased, pleased to see them converse without tension. They spoke of small things, the beauty of the gardens, the taste of local fruits, and avoided heavy topics like war or alliances. Just for now, both seemed content to find a rhythm together. Chapter 5. Eric's True Story. That evening, after their first meeting ended, Solara found her mind swirling with questions. She still didn't fully understand who he was or how he earned his formidable reputation. She needed the truth. Gathering her courage, she sought him out in a quieter corner of the palace where moonlight silvered the halls. She found him near a window, gazing at the stars. The gentle hush of night gave them privacy. Captain Eric, she said softly. He turned, offering a small nod. Please, she continued, voice earnest, tell me how you became known as the Ruthless Human. You seem so different from that name. He sighed, a distant sadness threading through his expression. I wasn't always a soldier, he began quietly. I was born on a quiet world, raised among simple folk. My family was peaceful, instilling in me values of honor and compassion. But the universe is harsh. Our region fell into conflict, and soldiers came, drafting the strong and young. Solara listened, heart tight. She had never imagined such origins. I was taken from my home, Eric said. Trained relentlessly. They taught us to fight, to show no weakness. On the battlefield, kindness was a liability, so I wore a mask of cold efficiency. In war, my calm competence seemed ruthless. He paused, gaze heavy. I won battles. My name spread, twisted into legend. But beneath that mask, I never lost my core beliefs. I learned you can be strong without cruelty. After my service ended, I sought purpose beyond violence. That's when the alliance talks began, and I was chosen to represent humanity here. Solara felt tears prick at her eyes. This man had faced unimaginable hardships, yet emerged with his soul intact. You never became ruthless, she said softly, just skilled at what you had to do. His eyes met hers, grateful for understanding. Exactly, he murmured. I carry the burden of that title, but it does not define me. I hope you will judge me by my actions here, not by old stories. She nodded, heart aching for him. I will, she promised. The fear of him vanished entirely. In its place grew respect, empathy, and perhaps the first sparks of genuine affection. He had suffered and chosen kindness anyway. How could she not admire that strength? Chapter 6. Embracing Hope. The wedding day approached. The palace brimmed with excitement and tension. Alien and human guests arrived, the courtyard filled with murmuring crowds. Flowing garments, dazzling jewels, music weaving through corridors. R'hllora and humanity stood on the cusp of a new era. Solara prepared for the ceremony in her chambers, ladies-in-waiting adjusting her gown, weaving delicate flowers into her hair. She stood before a mirror, recalling her past terrors and how they melted away. Eric waited somewhere below, likely as nervous as she. She felt no terror now, only a trembling hope. She believed in Eric's sincerity, in his capacity for compassion. She would marry not a monster, but a man who understood hardship and valued peace. King Velrun arrived, relief etched in his proud eyes. "My dear daughter," he said softly, "I see you calmer than I expected. Have you found comfort?" She met her father's gaze. "Yes, father. Captain Eric is not the ruthless figure we feared. He's thoughtful and kind. I believe we can make this alliance strong and just." Her father smiled, tears glinting at the corners of his eyes. "Then I am at peace. Relora's future rests in good hands, yours and his." Arm in arm, they descended to the grand hall. Music swelled, gentle harps and alien flutes merging into a harmonic tapestry. Candles and crystal chandeliers bathed everyone in warm light. At the aisle's end, Eric stood, dressed in formal attire blending human and Reloran elements, a subtle tribute to unity. He looked confident but not arrogant. When she approached, he offered a small, reassuring smile. Her heart soared. The officiant spoke words of alliance and peace. Vows were exchanged. Eric's vow was heartfelt. "Princess Solara, I promise respect, partnership, and understanding. I will stand by you, protect this peace we forge." She responded softly. "Captain Eric, I promise to trust you, to learn from you, and to build a future we both can treasure." Applause rose like gentle thunder. Solara felt Eric's steady presence at her side. Their marriage sealed more than a personal bond. It sealed hope for two peoples. Chapter 7. The Wedding Feast. After the ceremony, a grand feast took place in Relora's banquet hall. Long tables groaned under exotic dishes from both cultures, spiced fruits and savory stews from her kingdom, hearty breads and aromatic teas from human traders. Guests mingled, curiosity bridging differences. Solara saw humans and aliens laugh together, sharing stories and toasts. Something profound was happening, fear and prejudice dissolving into fellowship. She and Eric sat side by side at the high table, occasionally exchanging glances and smiles. They spoke in quiet tones, learning small details of each other's past, her favorite flowers, night-blooming irises, his fondness for stargazing. The conversation flowed easily, as if they had known each other far longer than a few days. Solara felt grateful beyond words. A week ago, she dreaded meeting him. Now, she cherished his company. He asked about her childhood, her studies in diplomacy. She asked about human music and poetry. Both were surprised to find so many interests aligned: a love of melodies, a respect for nature's beauty, a yearning for peaceful skies. As night deepened, dancing began. Soft melodies played. Solara hesitated, unsure if Eric danced. He stood and offered his hand. With a shy smile, she accepted. They stepped onto the floor, moving in gentle patterns. No formal steps were required, just the natural rhythm of two souls learning to synchronize. In that dance, she forgot fear and duty's burden, feeling only the honest connection between them. Around them, courtiers and guests smiled, relieved and heartened that this union was off to a promising start. Chapter 8. The Morning After. Dawn's gentle light found them strolling in the palace gardens. The marriage was done, guests departed or slept off festivities. Silence reigned, peaceful and full of promise. Solara pointed out different plants, telling small anecdotes. Eric listened attentively, asking questions about their care and meaning in Reloran culture. She had never imagined such interest from a human warrior. But now, it seemed natural. They paused by a secluded pond. The water mirrored their faces. Solara studied their reflections, side by side, alien princess and human captain. It struck her how fragile this peace was, a single union bridging galaxies' worth of misunderstandings. Yet if they could understand each other, perhaps their peoples could as well. Eric turned to her, voice quiet. I know we face challenges, negotiations with other worlds, skepticism from those who fear humans. I want you to know I stand ready, not just as your husband, but as your ally in all trials." Her chest tightened with emotion. "I feel the same," she replied. "We are partners now, building trust step by step." They spoke of the future's shape, how they might foster cultural exchanges, music festivals inviting human and Reloran performers, educational centers to teach each other's histories. The possibilities excited them. Chapter 9. Trials and Unity. In the following weeks, they began their duties as a royal couple. Meetings with diplomats, unveiling of joint projects. Skeptics tested their resolve. Some aliens muttered that humans would betray them. Some humans doubted Relora's sincerity. But Solara and Eric faced it together. She handled diplomacy with gentle patience. He offered calm strength and fairness. Their partnership became a symbol. People noted how Captain Eric listened to local elders, or how Princess Solara adopted some human traditions gracefully. Rumors of the ruthless human gave way to whispers of the human ambassador, a man who tempered might with compassion. Solara smiled at these changes, recalling her terror. How perceptions could shift when truth emerged. At home, they learned each other's personal habits. Eric rose early, practiced silent meditation he learned in human military camps, focusing mind and body. Solara found this soothing and sometimes joined him, sitting quietly as dawn touched the sky. Conversely, Eric adapted to evening storytelling rituals, where Solara read old legends under starlight. He listened enraptured, loving the lilting flow of her voice. Once, she asked timidly, "Do you regret marrying a stranger from another species?" He took her hand gently. "No. I regret the circumstances that forced this so soon, but not you. Meeting you has been a gift." Her heart fluttered. She realized affection, even love, might be blossoming. Chapter 10. A Journey Beyond Fear. Months passed. Their marriage stabilized into a bond of warmth and companionship. Together, they visited distant parts of Relora, showing a unified front. They introduced human and Reloran scholars, commissioning joint libraries. Under their careful guidance, prejudices eased. One evening, after a long council session, Solara rested in Eric's arms beneath an old tree in the royal orchard. Fireflies danced around them. She felt utterly safe. He told her stories of Earth, forests and oceans, cultures as varied as stars. She told him of Relora's ancient line of queens, who wove peace treaties into epic poems. Laughter and awe flowed freely. In these shared stories, fear had no place. Ruthlessness was a distant tale from another life. They had forged something real, weaving together their pasts, forging a future broader than either realm alone. Chapter 11. Building a Future Together. Over time, Solara found her initial dreaded distant memory. She learned that Eric's ruthlessness was a false idol raised by hearsay and enemy propaganda. In truth, he was a man molded by hardship but led by a moral compass unwavering. She found strength in his quiet resilience. He admired her diplomacy and empathy. Their synergy impressed dignitaries. They settled disputes gracefully, blending human pragmatism with Reloran compassion. Projects flourished, agricultural exchanges, art exhibits. The galaxy watched as a human and alien kingdom nurtured mutual respect. Captain Eric's image transformed into a symbol of what humans could be at their best, strong yet honorable. Princess Solara emerged as a visionary leader, bridging worlds. They spoke often of children, though it was early. They dreamed those children would grow in a world where human and alien differences sparked curiosity, not fear. A legacy of peace could be their greatest gift. Chapter 12. Embracing Love. One night, Under a canopy of shimmering constellations, Solara realized the truth. She loved Eric. His quiet humor, his unshakable loyalty, the way he listened deeply. She mustered courage and told him, by a moonlit fountain. He held her hand, eyes gentle, and admitted he felt the same. They kissed softly, sealing not only a political alliance, but a union of hearts. In that embrace, every fear dissolved completely. The princess, who once trembled at the thought of a human husband, now cherished him. The ruthless human now stood revealed as a man of rare virtue. Epilogue, A Forever Dawn. Years passed. Under their guidance, R'hllora and humanity's alliance blossomed into a cornerstone of interstellar harmony. Solara and Eric's marriage inspired countless others to set aside old prejudices. They became renowned peacemakers, invited to mediate other conflicts across star systems. In their personal life, they built a family and a legacy. The palace halls rang with laughter of children who learned both R'hllorian lullabies and human folk songs. They inherited a universe made gentler by their parents' example. One afternoon, walking again through those same palace gardens where Solara once spied on Eric, they paused by the old pond. Their reflections shimmered on the water's surface, just as before. Solara remembered that frightened girl and the distant figure called, "The ruthless human." She smiled at how far they'd come. Eric, noticing her thoughtful silence, squeezed her hand. She turned and kissed his cheek, whispering, "I'm grateful for everything that brought us here." He kissed her forehead softly. "So am I." In that quiet moment, surrounded by blossoms and birdsong, two souls from distant worlds, once strangers bound by duty and fear, now stood as partners in love and hope. Under the endless tapestry of stars, Princess Solara and Captain Eric's story became a beacon. Proof that kindness can be found in unexpected places, that fear can yield to understanding, and that even a princess and a so-called ruthless human could rewrite their destinies together.